Hello and welcome everyone back to the Pierce the Canvas podcast. My name is Pierce, as always. Today is December 30th, 2020, and yeah, we have a pretty hard show to watch here. A lot to have absorbed. I haven't actually done any podcast or anything since the passing of Brodie Lee. Extremely shocking news that we had received. I believe it was Saturday, this past Saturday. Um, and yeah, it was just super out of nowhere. Nobody outside of, I'm sure, a few key people in the business and his family had any idea what was going on. Um, and yeah, he just suddenly passed away due to a lung issue. Not necessarily to say that it was sudden. I think I had heard that it had been ongoing for a couple months, but nobody knew, right? So it hit the whole world like a punch, to the gut, the whole wrestling world. So of course, the following AEW Dynamite this week's would be a tribute show for Brodie Lee. Um, and yeah, we had a pretty stacked show as far as the matches that we got to see. They actually had Brodie Lee Jr., which is Brodie Lee's son, who had since been signed to AEW. He's been signed to contract to AEW. They had him book or at least, yeah, I guess pretty much book the main event here, which ended up being Cody Rhodes, Orange Cassidy, and 10 Preston Vance versus Team Taz. Um, Basically, it's like Brodie Lee Jr.'s dream team, Cody, 10, and Orange Cassidy. But yeah, like, as far as my memory of Brodie Lee goes, I'd been a fan of his since the beginning of his run in WWE with the Wyatt family. Kept up all through then. Me and my buddy, who's also a huge wrestling fan, got to see over the years that he like really was a great wrestler, and he and I would just be rooting for him all the time. Hated that he never got a proper push. They tried like a 1 week stint or something like that in WWE after the Wyatt family stuff, but it never ever got anywhere. I remember he had that one Dijakovic match. I think it was against Dijakovic in one of those weird NXT events, and that was like amazing. That's like where he really got to show WWE, and I think that might have actually been his last match in WWE before they granted him his release. But anyway, actually, I even got to see Brodie Lee one time. It was in 2016. I don't know if I said it before. I'm in the Toronto area, so Survivor Series was in Toronto for 2016, and the opening match during the whole show was Kane versus Luke Harper, and it wasn't like a crazy hyped match or anything. I think it was just for the pre-show, but it was awesome that I got to see him. And actually, if you would care to indulge, I'll show you real quick here. Just give me 1 sec. See if we can get this set up.
I was able to feel the fire.
Sorry, my mic was muted there. That was the one time I got to actually see Brodie Lee live in action. The one and only time. I feel extremely privileged to have even been able to. There's so many wrestlers like from even today going all the way back, way back when, that I just really wish I could have seen. I could tell you right now, Brodie Lee would have been one of those people, like, if he had passed and I had never got to see him. So I was very privileged to actually be able to see him live there against Kane at Survivor Series in 2016. But yeah, everybody said it a million times. Just an amazing family man. We all knew it. It didn't take his passing for us to figure that out. Just everywhere you would see him outside of the context of wrestling, he was always with his family. Like it was even during his, I think it was during his AEW restricted podcast, he was like just driving his kids around while doing the podcast. So it's just clear like how amazing a guy it is that we lost here, and all the condolences in the world to his family and everybody around the world, affected by his death, the whole wrestling world. But we'll get into the show here. So it started off with the entire AEW roster and probably even crew standing at the stage. Jim Ross opens up with Wednesday, you know what that means, which was Brodie Lee's like Twitter thing that he always did. And we rose for 10 bells. Of course, the normal thing to do in a situation like this, and very, very emotional moment. And then it cut to a video of Jon Moxley talking about his memory of Brodie, how awesome a guy he was, how he would always bring joy to any locker room he was in. He spent a decade with him, whether it was in the halls all the way to the stadiums. Praised his love for his family. Moxley said that 2020 has hit us over and over again. He said, like Brodie Lee would say, like a pride soccer-style kick right to the face. Jon Moxley says that, the wrestling business is a community and brings us all together. Tonight we come to rage against the dying of the light, a great human being who should inspire us to be better every day, appreciate those around us, smell the roses every day. Jon says that he got to spend, the time he got to spend with Brodie was always special. He loves him and won't forget him. And then we were told we would hear more testimonies throughout throughout the show as to everybody's kind of experience with Brodie Lee and their thoughts about him. This brought us into the first match, which was Private Party and Matt Hardy versus Young Bucks and Colt Cabana. This is a Brodie Lee themed show, so every match did involve Dark Order members. Young Bucks were sporting Brodie Lee merch. Private Party are sporting like Dark Order themed, like purple gear. At this point of the show, Chris Jericho joined commentary, which was really awesome, just because obviously it was kind of like a really sad vibe throughout the show. Jericho was really awesome in terms of like just bringing up the hype, and he would always make it clear like, we're doing this for Brodie, man. Come on, let's get the energy up, and it felt great, watching the show and kind of feeling sad, but then Jericho's there to cheer us up. And Colt Cabana in this match was definitely real emotional at the beginning, as everybody was throughout the entire show. Got lots of tributes to Brodie Lee, of course. As for the spots in the match, Young Bucks got the heels outside of the ring to do their double dive spot. Cabana got a crazy apron moonsault on all the heels. At one point, I think one of the Young Bucks got tagged in, and Private Party were getting the heat on Young Bucks, and the crowd was like screaming for Colt to get back in the ring. It reminded me almost of like when Zack Ryder, or when The Rock was in the ring and everybody was cheering for Zack Ryder. It was like that, just everybody's going nuts. Tag Colt, get Colt back in the ring, man. So everybody was loving Colt. Matt Hardy got his side effect on Matt Jackson for a near fall. Matt Jackson hit Matt Hardy with a twist of fate. Tags in Colt Cabana, and the crowd just popped. Got another crazy apron moonsault. Got a crazy hurricanrana and a hip bump, like the move that Asuka does, where she like hits you with her ass. Basically, he did that on Isaiah Cassidy. Mark Quinn hit a springboard crossbody on Colt, which was also really crazy. Got like 10 feet on that. Nick Jackson got a super kick to Matt Hardy. Gets an avalanche Rana on Mark Quinn. Private Party land Gin and Juice. Matt lands a twist of fate. Isaiah lands a swanton. Mark Quinn lands a moonsault, but the pin is stopped. I don't remember exactly who that was on. It might have been on Colt Cabana, possibly. Matt Hardy has a chair, but Mark Quinn doesn't want Matt to cheat. Colt gets tagged in, drops Isaiah with the Chicago skyline. Young Bucks land Indie Taker on Mark. Colt Cabana does like his weird pin for the win, like that weird one where he like hooks his legs on the opponent's legs and does like a push-up position. It's like the weirdest pin ever, but that got them the win. And Dark Order is number 1, which again is Brodie Lee Jr. and the crowd looking really, really happy. Out come the Acclaimed while the Young Bucks and Colt Cabana are in the ring. Acclaimed are about to cut a promo, but SCU comes and throws them into the ring. Young Bucks super kick them. Colt does his elbow, his like his cool elbow to take him out. Darby, after the segment, it's Darby Allin giving his testimony on Brodie Lee, and says the first time he met Brodie is when he debuted. He told Sammy Guevara that he wants to wrestle him more than anyone. He would talk to him and found that there was no ego in him. He was not there to take a spot from anyone. He was only there to elevate the rest of the roster. He wasn't selfish and would only lift everyone up. Darby learned a lot from Brodie, and it's just unfortunate because, you know, this is the number one guy that Darby Allin says he wanted to wrestle. So, you know, just cut off way too short. You know, it's crazy. Next up, we had Lance Archer teaming up with Dark Order's Stu Grayson and Evil Uno versus Eddie Kingston, Butcher, and Blade. And Lance Archer got a pop out of me. This guy was rocking Luke Harper ring gear. It was awesome. Eddie Kingston cuts a quick promo, calls for Brodie, and says that he loves him, he misses him. Says that this is for him, but Kingston says the Dark Order ain't nothing without him. So match starts and Lance is slamming all the heels onto each other, like literally just body slamming all of them on top of each other until at one point Uno and Grayson suplex Lance Archer onto Eddie Kingston. Excalibur actually mentioned at one point that Brodie had a whole bunch of matches with the Blade early in their careers, so Blade obviously has had a lot of experience with him as well. Uno and Kingston are in a crazy slap fest until Uno stiffs him and lands a half-and-half German suplex. Archer takes Blade in his ripcord choke slam, lands his like kind of old school, you know, the Undertaker's old school, where he's walking on the top rope. So Archer does that same thing, but instead of just like hitting his arm, he does a whole moonsault. Just crazy. I've only seen him do that like a few times. It's been a while since. Dark Order get Blade their finish. Sorry, I wrote this like really confusing. Dark Order do their finisher to the Blade. Archer cross bodies on him, goes for the pin, but it's broken up. Eddie Kingston lands a DDT to Stu Grayson for a near fall. Archer comes back in the ring, attempts a blackout to the Blade, but Kingston breaks it. Stu Grayson landed a flying DDT onto the apron to Butcher. Dark Order land their fatality finisher for the win. And the baby faces get Kingston in the ring. They all take out Eddie Kingston. And finally, they pick him up for Jake Roberts to give his first move since coming to AEW. And he lands a discus lariat to him for the celebration. And I think Excalibur, you know, unfortunately I didn't watch all of Jake Roberts' matches back in the day, but I think Excalibur mentioned that he invented the discus lariat, or like probably somehow came up with the original move. So that was real cool. One thing I did notice, so everybody was celebrating, and Lance Archer in particular was in the corner, like yelling into a camera. And I guess he was just like saying a bunch of stuff for Brodie, basically. But he's talking and talking, like he's going, like almost having like a conversation, like in the camera. And Stu Grayson and Evil Uno are like kind of celebrating with the referee. At one point, Stu Grayson, like he seemed like he was pissed off. He like hits Archer. He's like, "Come down, dude. We're supposed to celebrate." And then they quickly go to commercial. So I don't know. I think Stu Grayson might have gotten a little annoyed there. That was kind of weird. Next, we have a photo slideshow of Brodie with his family. A couple more people giving their thoughts, including Dax Harwood, Arn Anderson, Colt Cabana. Bryce Remsburg as well is just completely broken down and says Brodie Lee should be on the Mount Rushmore of wrestling dads. You know, he's the best of the best as far as the dads of wrestling, you know, go. So next we have another tag team match: Hangman Page, John Silver, and Alex Reynolds versus Inner Circle's MJF, Santana, and Ortiz. MJF, for whatever reason, is decked in like Puerto Rican themed gear. Shows off his New York Times award for the Dinner Debonair segment. Not too sure why MJF is wearing that gear. I think Maybe just A, because he's teaming with Proud and Powerful, and B, they kind of had that bonding moment last week, so maybe MJF is just like, all right, I'm cool with these guys, I'm going to wear their Puerto Rican gear. Dark Order smacks Santana and Ortiz with a bunch of papers before the match starts. Or maybe I was right when the match started. It was at some point. After the bell rung, Adam Page whips a whole bunch of papers at MJF. MJF gets pissed off, goes out of the ring, and he starts yelling in Brodie Lee Jr.'s face, like telling him he's a nobody. And Tony Schiavone on commentary calls him an asshole on the air. I don't think that's allowed. John Silver is wearing Brodie Lee's ring gear, like the exact same ring gear he would wear, obviously just a John Silver sized version. So he has like the crazy beard, so he just looks like a mini John Silver. It's actually pretty funny. Adam Page at one point's just doing 100 moves, going to the outside to attack the heels, back in the ring to attack MJF until Dark Order take him down. With some like weird assisted move, like a move where I think Santana and Ortiz were holding Hangman, and then MJF like slides into Hangman, and then they whip him over. It was just the weirdest move. It was cool though. MJF flips off -1 from the top rope. Again, -1 being Brodie Lee Jr. Just flips him off. Hangman kicks him down. John Silver goes nuts, landing cannonballs and a diving crossbody on Ortiz, as well as a pop-up power bomb. Santana lands his cutter. Ortiz lands a spine buster as well. John Silver landed a pretty intense and awkward destroyer on MJF. It looked a little scary, but I don't think it was much. It was okay. Landed a tope on Santana. MJF lands a heat seeker on John Silver, but Santana and Ortiz. And then they go for the pin, but the pin's broken by Alex Reynolds. And then in the middle of the match, Wardlow shows up for whatever reason and attacks Reynolds. I'm not too sure why he is pissed off at Dark Order in particular, why he returned at this exact moment, but I know what the whole thing was done for. So Wardlow comes and attacks Reynolds, and by the way, the ref is distracted. I was expecting a disqualification, but the ref's distracted. So who comes for the save except for Eric Rowan? Yeah, appropriately, right? They had to do this for him, I believe he's now known as Redbeard. Chris Jericho, just first thing he yelled out was Eric Rowan, and then I think Excalibur's like, no, Redbeard. Shows up and takes out Wardlow. Aubrey Edwards again is just distracted the entire time. I was kind of waiting for a disqualification, the first disqualification in AEW history. I swear, I don't think they've had one, have they? Dark Order land a German suplex, and Hangman lands a buckshot lariat. MJF rips -1's mask off and starts spitting on it. -1 has a kendo stick and bashes MJF right in the head with it. Silver landed a discus lariat on Ortiz for the win. Redbeard, John Silver, Alex Reynolds celebrate, and Silver just I think he just lost it when he got the pin and won. He just kind of started crying, and he's just down there the whole time while Reynolds and Hangman Page are just tending to him. And after that, everyone celebrates. Redbeard, Silver, and Reynolds, they all celebrate. Redbeard holds up a sign that says, "Goodbye for now, my brother. See you down the road." And everybody's really emotional hugs around the ring. Eddie Kingston says that he's going to miss Brodie, and the jokes that they would pull off together, he named a bunch of inside jokes they had together throughout their friendship. Brodie believed in Eddie Kingston when Eddie didn't believe in himself. Eddie tells Brodie Jr. that Brodie Lee is never gone, or maybe he was saying this to both of his kids, that Brodie Lee's never gone. Says he was a warrior in and outside of the business, and assures his kids of how much Brodie loved him. Next match, Tay Conti and Anna 99J versus Britt Baker and Penelope Ford. When the match was about to start, they took some shots of the crowd, and I think one of the announcers mentioned that this is the largest crowd that they've had since the pandemic had begun. So it's nice to see that everybody came out for the tribute show today. Obviously, given that everybody's safe and everything. Tay Conti at the beginning of the match lands a facebuster to Penelope Ford, and just starts going off with really impressive judo style kicks. Rebel's trying to get Tay onto the apron, struggling. Penelope lands a leg drop on Tay. There's a really cool spot where Tay and Penelope bicycle kick each other at the same time. That leads to hot tags. Anna Jay lands her kick to Britt's head, getting her out of the ring. Anna Jay is kind of just like emotional in the ring once Britt's out of the ring, just pointing up to the sky, eyes kind of watering up. But Britt Baker came out of nowhere and landed her neckbreaker finisher, or whatever that is. That led to a near fall. Penelope lands a diving neckbreaker for a near fall. Penelope gets locked in Anna Jay's headlock for the win. So Anna Jay and Tay Conti come out with the win here. They celebrate together, pointing to the sky, praying to Brodie Lee. And then Britt Baker demands that Tony Schiavone gets in the ring for whatever reason. Just a weird kind of, I don't know what the point of this promo was. She's like, "Oh, I'm sick of the conspiracy. This match was rigged," she says. And in my head, I'm like, I mean, she's not wrong, right? Says the whole thing was a big rig. And she said it in a way where it's like, is there an inside joke I'm supposed to get? Like, big rig? I know there's like a video game, Big Rig Off-Road Racing. I don't know anything else. Anyway, for whatever reason, this provoked Thunder Rosa to come out, and she beat up Britt Baker. They fought a little bit until the officials held him back. And, oh yeah, and I just realized that I got a comment here. Jose, if you're still watching, yes, Rowan is in AEW, man. Really crazy. It shocked me as much as you're probably shocked by it. Again, Wardlow's just in the ring attacking, and I was just wondering, like, why is Wardlow even in the ring attacking Dark Order? Like, what's he got to do with them? But then that was just to set up Rowan coming out, and yeah, Rowan came out and again, it had to be done for the tribute. So it made absolute perfect sense. I'm not sure if he's like signed to the company or anything like that. I'm not sure if he's still wrestling, but it was really nice, really, really nice to get to see him actually come down for the show. Where were we here? So next week, just to talk about a couple things that will be happening, it's another big show. It's a New Year's Smash, night 1. Which will feature Snoop Dogg. I'm not too sure what he'll be doing. I think I heard he's announcing. Did they say that? I don't know. They might have said it on the show, but I'm not too sure what his role will be. I think, again, announcing or something. Kenny versus Phoenix. Kenny Omega versus Rey Fenix for the AEW title. Jon Moxley will make his official return. Shida versus Abaddon. I think that's for the Women's Championship. Young Bucks and SCU versus TH2 and Acclaimed. And Jake Hager versus Wardlow. There's also Cody Rhodes versus Matt Sydal and Chris Jericho on commentary. If Chris Jericho is going to be on commentary, that might mean there's going to be like a 5 or however many man booth next week if Snoop Dogg is also on commentary. We'll see how it goes. Should be a great show next week. We'll be back for that. Chris Jericho says that he worked with Brodie Lee 27 times. He said that somebody had just recently reminded him of that. One of those times was in Saudi Arabia. One day, Chris Jericho was in his hotel room for the Saudi Arabia show, and he sees like a sticker in his hotel room, and the sticker was like an arrow. And Chris Jericho asked Brodie, like, what the hell is this sticker in my room? And Brodie Lee told him that's an arrow pointing to Mecca, right? So it just came to show like how intelligent a guy he was. Like super super smart dude. So Jericho's just praising his intelligence. One of the best workers that he ever wrestled. Jericho also helped get him into the company here. While he was in AEW, he got to prove that he's a money-making star. He had been in the main event of a pay-per-view. Jericho had Brodie Lee over at his house one time. And Chris Jericho has a dog who apparently is like real vicious, just doesn't like anybody. But Brodie Lee's like the only guy that he just came right up to and started licking. So just said he's a lovely guy and says he'll miss him. And that brings us to the main event, which was Cody Rhodes, Orange Cassidy, and 10, aka Preston Vance, versus Team Taz. Cody Rhodes, Orange Cassidy, and Preston Vance being Brodie Lee Jr.'s dream trio. So that's the match he booked here. I guess, again, I mentioned earlier he's signed to a contract. I don't know if he's like, is he a booker now? Is this what's going on? No, but really, really cool that this got to be put together. Orange Cassidy, when he's coming out, gives a props to -1. Cody gives a hug to Bryce Remsburg. Again, I mentioned earlier during the testimonies, he was definitely didn't take it lightly, this loss here. So I just feel terrible for him. During the match, Cody was trying to tag in Cassidy, but he's too lazy. He's just standing there like, Instead, he tags in 10, who lands a slingshot German to Starks. Powerhouse Hobbs sets a lockup for Orange Cassidy, but Orange Cassidy, of course, just puts his hands in his pockets. Brian Cage landed a delayed vertical suplex to Orange Cassidy. Starks attempted one as well, but Orange Cassidy was able to reverse into his own suplex. Orange Cassidy at one point was going for a hot tag, and Ricky Starks would just always manage to catch him. Like, Orange would just get right to the corner, and Ricky would just grab his leg and pull him back. And he would jump again, grab his leg, and pull him back. At one point, Orange Cassidy just jumped over Ricky Starks to get a hot tag. It was like the coolest hot tag ever. Preston lands a power slam on Starks, landed a Brodie bomb, which I frankly wasn't aware of. I didn't know about the Brodie bomb, but I guess that was one of his moves. Starks spears 10 for a near fall. Cassidy lands a spinning DDT to Starks, but Hobbs crushes him. Starks lands a spinning DDT on 10 for a near fall. At one point, Taz gets a chair. He's just pissed off. You know, Taz is always pissed off. Grabs a chair, threatening to get into the match, I guess. Arn Anderson's like, I ain't having that. He gets his own chair. They both kind of face off. Orange Cassidy lands an orange punch to Ricky Starks. Cody Rhodes lands a crossroads on him. 10 lands a spine buster, which I think is his finisher, on Ricky Starks. And that was the finish for the win. Team Taz distracts the celebration, this time with Hook. The match only involved Brian Cage, Ricky Starks, and Powerhouse Hobbs. I had a brain fart there. But yeah, actually Hook came for the attack after the match. The lights eventually go out, and out comes the TNT champion, Darby Allin. The lights go out again, and it's Sting. And it was just another Sting just staring at the bad guys. Wasn't a whole lot more than that. It was actually kind of funny because, you know, Sting's entrance, it's like snow falling from wherever. So all the heels are like covered in fake snow. It's kind of funny. So Sting just goes to the ring with Darby Allin, and they just stand there with 10, Cody Rhodes, and Orange Cassidy. And that ends the wrestling portion of the show. That was it. So Sting, again, just gets an easy payday, just stands in the ring and just holds his bat and just stares at some bad guys. So still we didn't get a whole lot with Sting. As far as that goes, it's like, where is this going? Is it going to be a match? Like, I guess it was confirmed he will be wrestling in AEW, so I think it will come to a match eventually. I guess a big tag team match with Team Taz, Sting. Will probably team up with, I guess, Orange Cassidy, Darby Allin, and Cody Rhodes. Not sure, but we'll see what happens. So like I said, that was the end of the wrestling kind of portion of the show. They went to commercial, and once they came back, it was Cody Rhodes in the ring by himself. He decided to give a live testimony on Lee. So he basically said he was looking for a quote that would describe him, and came up with, "You can judge a man's character by how he can treat someone who will do him no good. There's never been a wrestler where everyone in the business had a real connection, like they did with Brodie Lee. He was a beautiful man, leaves behind a beautiful legacy." Cody called in -1, Brodie Lee Jr. -1 walks to the ring with his mother, with 10 and Tony Khan. Junior puts Brodie's boots in the middle of the ring with a blue bandana. Tony Khan says that Lee was the greatest TNT champion they ever had. Um, Hands negative won his own TNT title, says, "You're the forever TNT champion." Tony says that we're here to honor one of wrestling's greatest men, presents us to a tribute to Mr. Brodie Lee. And it was a highlights package, of course, showing numerous photos of the beginning of his career, many highlights and memories with his family. We got, we got to see a lot of WWE guys. Like the pictures, the people in the pictures consisted of Bray Wyatt. We saw Becky Lynch. We saw Seth Rollins. We saw Big E. So they showed a lot of photos with a lot of people who shared some very fond and special memories with Brodie Lee. And we also got to see some of the being the elite moments, the really famous BTE moments, as well as a lot of his AEW highlights, winning the title and so on and so forth. And that is what took us off the air. So yeah, really emotional night. That last segment was particularly hard to watch and get through. Just feel horrible for the family, but I'm so over the moon glad that this guy just landed with AEW, man. Because like if the guy just stayed in, or just got released from WWE and didn't end up going anywhere, he wouldn't have had this amazing end of his career that he had in AEW. And it's also just awesome that AEW is going to take a lot of responsibility for the family here. Like they're going to be financially supporting them throughout this insanely tough time. Like I said, -1, Brodie Lee Jr. was signed a contract. So I'm so happy that AEW just exists. They made me extremely happy today with just how they handled all of this stuff and how they made the show go. Obviously it's a special night, so all the baby faces won. We knew what the outcomes for all the matches would be. Dark Order won every match. But yeah, it's just it's extraordinarily unfortunate the loss here. This is for all of us, even myself as a wrestling fan. It just like sucks. But yeah, we'll see. What happens with the Dark Order from here. And again, like I said, next week, the next 2 weeks for AEW are going to be particularly big episodes. It's going to be the New Year's Smash events. So we'll be back for that. As always, to everybody who is watching, thank you so much for sticking around. Again, I'm Pierce. This is Pierce the Canvas Podcast. Don't forget to like and subscribe. And yeah, we'll be back again next week. So take care. Have a good rest of your night.